So have you ever had trouble in your art practice where you get stuck, you can't level up, or you can't do what you want to do? I'd love to talk to you about how to level up your skill set, how to get that dream of being a terrific artist in motion, in momentum, and without resistance. And I'm going to talk to Stan about that. We're going to figure out a way to help you through this resistance point.
So have you thought about all the things that hold newer students back from improving faster?
Oftentimes, something like art, you only come to because you're passionate about it. You get curious and you, in some way or another, realize what's there and what that can potentially mean for you. I can create something beautiful and hang it on the wall, give it to my loved ones, or make a living out of it. And that fascination with the form and what it can mean to you puts a lot of pressure. We think about it so much. We dream about it so much. We want to be good. And we forget to give ourselves permission to be bad. So if you think of the little child, they don't care if they fall down while they're walking. They'll just get up and keep walking. And they have this natural tenacity because they don't know it's embarrassing to be bad. And yet we build all these things on top of our dreams, say learning to draw the figure. And if we do it badly, we've been trained to punish that. We get a bad grade in school if we do it badly. You didn't get that answer right. And so our own biology, our own experience sets us up to fail because we're not giving ourselves permission to be bad until we're not bad anymore. And I saw that in school when I went to college, art college, so many years ago, is people who were doing really well, getting scholarships, getting their tuition paid, getting in the galleries. They were afraid to do anything that wouldn't get them in the galleries, that wouldn't give them a good grade. And their own drive, and in some ways even their own success at being really masterful or terrific in one area, limited them from the ability to be bad in another area. And if you're going to learn at all, if you're going to become more at all in anything, you've got to realize there's going to be a real awkward phase. It doesn't last a super long time, but there's an awkward phase between not being good and being solid. And then there's difficulties from solid to fantastic. But that early resistance from not being able to even get your fingers on the string of the guitar to be able to play a couple songs pretty well, there's a big leap from absolute not knowing the language to have some fluency in the language. It's art, it's its own language. I think that's the biggest problem. If we can learn to be kinder stewards of our own dreams, in some sense kinder parents to that little child that wants to be an artist someday, the growth is less, there's less resistance because the expectations are lowered.
So allow yourself to be bad. Are there any others?
Well, a couple things. One is, and in some ways it's connected to what I just said, but when we want to be good at something, we want to get the whole figure, the whole composition, all the colors. We want to get all of this stuff right. And if you're going to be masterful in any craft, there's several moving parts, several separate skills. It's not a skill to be an artist. It's a stack of skills. It's a skill stack. You got linear perspective, laws of light, color theory, canons of beauty, depth of field, edges and structure and gesture, all this stuff. Each one you could spend a lifetime trying to master, and we got to do a bunch of them, especially in figurative drawing where it's so skill set heavy. So if we can chunk down, if we try and do it all at once because we want to get it right, we're going to fail. And then, as I just said earlier, if we don't give ourselves permission to fail, there's almost no hope that we'll continue in that and get any real traction in that. So one is be kinder to yourself, but the other is to chunk down so that if I want to learn to draw the figure, there's a lot of things to do. So start with one or two of those things. I'm not going to try and draw the beautiful shapes of the arm. I'm going to draw a simple tube. I'm not going to try and get the beautiful tonal landscape of the body. I'm going to use simple line. And you can start by creating little vignettes. Just take a small version of that bigger problem. So if we have our goals and we're careful in protecting the journey, the goals are more likely to happen. Reduce the frustration by lowering your expectation. Reduce the frustration by taking a little but significant piece of the problem and solving that first, and then stacking little success, little win on little win, and then all of a sudden you're getting successes.
I think a big problem is that some people might start that process. Logically, it makes sense. Every day, add a little bit more, make it a little more challenging. But then 2 weeks later, they forgot about the goal, this plan that they created for themselves to add a little bit every day, and then it just goes away. Some other problem became more important in their life. Anything on that?
A couple things on that. One, if you're setting yourself up for those little wins, as we've just discussed, then your own biology is going to reward you. You're going to feel good. If I say I'm going to go work out for an hour and a half and I only work out for 45 minutes, I'll feel like a failure. But if I say I'm going to go for just a couple minutes but not look at the watch, and when I look at it, it's 6 minutes, I just 3x my goal. Our biology doesn't know the difference between that little tiny success and some big success. Our brain, in a lot of ways, is very stupid. The stress we feel because we don't do a good drawing, that little tiny death of self-confidence, the old brain doesn't know the difference between that little self-death of confidence and a saber-toothed tiger about to kill you. Stress is stress, danger is danger, and then it's going to try and talk you out of it. It's going to create resistance. You're going to get those scripts, you're not good enough, you can't do this thing. So one, if you can set yourself up for most of the time, we can't do it every time, but most of the time when you sit down to do your art or work on your goal, you set yourself up to leave after you've won and set yourself up in that practice to have a better chance of winning. It can be just like the proportions and the structure is horrible in this drawing, but boy, that one line, beautiful line. The color was really joyous. Find one way to reward yourself and lower your expectations, then you're more likely to want to come back because your biology says do that. You're safer doing that than these other stressful things. So that's part of it, is starting from that metric.
In this course, I'm going to teach you how to keep those drawing skills that are so often complicated and overwhelming, simple and intuitive. I'd love to show you how you can become an excellent figurative artist by understanding only 3 basic craft skills. Thank you for that.
So the other thing is we're primarily visual beings, which is kind of convenient for draftsmen and painters and such. And because we're visual, if we visualize, we have a better chance to do it. So you can do things like journal, write down your goals. Or what I'll do is I'll do little Post-its or 3x5 cards with tape and put them on my computer screen, or get a dry erase board and write down my goals so I see it, putting my favorite artists of who I want to look like someday. If we can visualize that, put it out in front of us, we have a better chance of being motivated for that. I walk into the place I'm going to do my art, and I see these reminders. And then the other thing is, usually when we make goals, it's up here. We think, I want to be a commercial artist, professional artist, so I can make a living doing what I love rather than what I hate. And so we have a goal. Usually those goals are actually disguised survival goals. It's just our old biology saying this is a better way, a safer way to live. If I can find a way to do my art, I can make money at this. If I can find a way to do better art, my friends or my family will think more of me. They're actually fundamental fear-based goals. If we can make our goals underneath that, get past that, I want to do it because, just kind of the brain and the survival, and get down really into the heart center. Usually, again, just like seeing a visualization of the goals, we'll be more motivated. So we start stacking these little motivations. Plato said, if you change your mind, you change your reality. I don't want to be this, I want to be this person, her art, I want to be like that. Seeing that dream of reality visualized makes it more potentially real for our psyche and more likely to succeed. We know this by brain studies. Those who do that just level up like crazy oftentimes and have a better chance of achieving their goal. And then the last way, if we can turn in what was selfish, so I want to be a better artist. I want to be good at that. I don't want to feel bad when I'm making mistakes. If we can then take what was self-based reasons and flip it from internal to external, then it goes from a passion, a hobby, a career, a passion, to a purpose. And if we can then start doing it not only for us, but because it makes me feel so good, I want to share this feeling with others. The world is under such stress, I want to put a little more beauty in the world. All of those are motivating stacks to keep us more likely moving forward. Because all of this moving forward, that's evolving. You're turning into something more than you were. That takes a lot of energy. When I decided to become an artist, my dear friends that I'm still friends in high school had less to talk about me with. They didn't want me to do that. That was going off in a direction they weren't going. When I decided to go from a commercial artist to a fine artist, all my commercial artist friends that I'm still friends with didn't really want me to go into fine art because that was going off in a direction that's separating from them. So there's going to be a lot of internal and social external resistance to our goals. And so we can't have one reason for doing something and expect to succeed. Ideally, we have several stacked reasons. We have a skill stack of skills to learn. We should stack our motivation so we've got several things working in our favor to not get rid of, but reduce the resistance and increase the momentum. At that point, it's emotional physics. A body at rest tends to stay at rest. A body going in the same direction takes a lot of energy to change direction. The most energy we put into physics or our emotional well-being or our motivation for some goal is going from zero to something. Someday I want to be an artist. I'm going to start today. That takes a tremendous amount of energy to move, and it takes some time, 3 weeks actually, to get the momentum where it starts to become a habit and the resistance reduces. So that 3 weeks, as you suggested, is a long haul if we're not doing several things to motivate that. We have an accountability partner. We have a community that supports us because they want to be supported. We set ourselves up for little wins rather than big failures. We have visuals around to remind us of the reality we want to create someday. And we have motivations that are not just for us, but for everybody, our 3 friends or the whole world. All those things stack on top to create a better chance, still no guarantee, a better chance that you'll stick with what you say you want to stick with. That's the trick. And for creative beings, it's particularly important that we stack these motivations and we create an art practice that is not devoid of stress, but less stressful. Because when we get stressed as human beings, we know what happens. But when we get stressed as creative beings, we're no longer creative. We freeze up, we run away, or we fight through the suffering and do it anyway. None of those are creative choices. In fact, those are the same choices a reptile has when it's living through the day. So if we want to really tap into our own creative genius and upscale our own creative talents, if we can significantly reduce the stress, we're going to increase the creative choices. Now we can make farther afield creative connections around how to get what we want in our goals, or how to get what we want in our craft, or how to find our own personal voice in our style. Things start to then stack in our favor, and then what felt like radically uphill can suddenly actually be downhill, and now you're working without momentum. The more I put into my art, the more people online or in my class love what I'm doing and learn from what I'm doing, to get excited about what I'm doing. And now what I've given, I actually am getting more back in return. Now think of that fortunate circle, that wheel of momentum, as opposed to pushing through the resistance of my own biology. That's like wading through mud in the surf. It can be done, but it's so hard every step of the way. One of the great powers of our brain is we're natural puzzle solvers and natural meaning makers, and oftentimes we'll solve the problem wrong. will build meaning into it that's not there. You give me a funny look right now, I'll build a story around that might make me feel, oh my God, I've offended this nice man, and then I'm going to feel horrible about it. So we tend to kind of make up our reality. We fill in the blanks around it. And so if we can learn to rewrite the script in a healthier way, then some of that goes away. Some of that bad projection of more trouble than it's worth. We build up the resistance in our minds, and that's why it's so important to have a community when you're doing what you want to do, doing that passion, having that great dream for your life. And it can be hard to find that sometimes, but in the online space, we can construct our own communities in some manner or form, online or in our hometown. Find people who want what you want. Give them support so they'll give you support. So there's reciprocity there. And then the resistance is less because we don't know what we don't know. And oftentimes we don't know when we've projected a bad script on maybe a good situation. Fresh eyes can tell us that. Fresh eyes have perspective. Oftentimes, because we have an insecurity about what we care about, we avoid those problem areas. So we get to a certain level, it feels good. And we don't want to go back and be that beginner where it was so hard. So give yourself permission, not very much of the time, especially at first, because it'll feel overwhelming, it'll feel exhausting. But take a little tiny bit of your art practice and work on the weaknesses, but chunk it down so it's manageable. One little problem at a time. So I'm having trouble with proportions. Well, maybe I'll work on the proportions just of the 3 joints of the finger. How much shorter are they one to the other? Find a way to train a better eye for proportion in the safest possible way. Something you can work through rather quickly that won't take weeks or months of pain and suffering to achieve, like doing a better multi-figure composition this time. That's what the best in the world do. They call it the 4% rule. 4% more difficult. If I want to be an Olympic skier, my trainer is going to have me go down that same slope that I'm very good at 4% faster, or find a new slope that's 4% bumpier. They've studied this over and over again. 4% is just out of reach, but you know it's so close you'll get it in a practice or two, a session or two, a week or two. That'll become your new baseline. 2% is too easy. 6% is too overwhelming. So one of the jobs is figure out your 4% of pushing yourself a little to be more, but in a safe way, and then add that as part of your practice, some sliver. And that's often called the 80-20 rule. Maybe 20% of the time, every 5th drawing, or maybe the warm-up in the drawing class, I'm going to work on a few challenges, probably just one challenge. Do that for a while. I'm not so good with feet. 20% of the time, the next 2 weeks or month, I'm going to work on feet for a few minutes. And maybe at the end of that time, that'll be as good as everything else, or maybe that'll be the best thing. And then I'll work on the next thing. And you go to those areas that are challenges, and you put a little targeted practice to make those not a weakness, but a good solid skill set. And that's how you can slowly bring up a holistic set of skills that'll serve you well in your art practice. I've got a brand new course I've done for Proko. I'm so excited about this. This is a foundational course. It fits under all the other wonderful Proko courses. Now, if we understand art at a deeper level, the foundations of art, and why art has a certain process that gets us into the heart and allows us to create and develop and share our own personal voice, I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to show you some of the world-class training practices that the best in the world use to become the best of the world. We have amazing information out there on brain science, how we learn, how we tap into creativity, defining creativity, why flow states are so important, how spiritual traditions and art traditions are working with the same connective strategies. Let me give you those foundational ideas that will help propel you through all those craft skills you're so excited to learn. Thank you for letting me share in this journey of yours. And if you'd like to follow me, reach out to me online. I'm at stevehuston.com. And if you just plug in Steve Huston on any of the social media sites, you'll find me there. And I'd love to connect with you. I wish you the best of luck.